story of Rodney Alcala began in the 1970s, during a time when trust in strangers seemed almost natural. Young women felt safe walking the streets alone, meeting new people, and exploring the freedoms that the era offered. However, that era of trust and optimism had its shadows, and one of the darkest was Alcala. Alcala, born in Texas and raised in California, was a handsome man with a magnetic charm. In his 20s, he studied at University of California, Los Angeles, and had dreams of becoming a photographer, honing his skills by taking portraits of women and young children. His demeanor was striking. He was well-spoken, intelligent, and even studied fine arts at New York University. But these outward qualities masked a terrifying inner nature. Alcala's trail of murder began in the late 1960s. He was first arrested in 1968, when police in Los Angeles responded to a report of a man seen luring an 8-year-old girl named Tali Shapiro into his apartment. When they arrived, they found the young girl brutally assaulted and left for dead. Alcala fled to avoid capture, managing to escape before the police could close in on him. This marked the beginning of a series of crimes that would span over a decade. After fleeing to New York, he took on a new identity, enrolling in New York University Film School under the name John Berger. By 1971, Alcala was on the FBI's most wanted list, yet he evaded capture for several years, committing a string of violent assaults and murders along the way. Despite multiple arrests, he always found a way to slip through the cracks of the legal system. In 1978, in one of the most eerie moments in television history, Rodney Alcala appeared on The Dating Game, a popular TV show where a single woman would ask 3 bachelors questions to decide who she would go on a date with. Alcala's charming and flirtatious answers won over the bachelorette, Cheryl Bradshaw, who chose him as her date. However, backstage, Bradshaw found him unnervingly creepy and ultimately decided not to go out with him.
Number 1. You're a dirty old man. Take it.
Oh, come on, over here.
Oh, honey, we ought to go out and boogie.
While viewers at home saw only an attractive, funny contestant, those who knew Alcala recognized him for what he was, a sociopath. His appearance on national television as he continued his killing spree would later earn him the moniker, the Dating Game Killer. Alcala's killing methods were cruel and ritualistic. He often lured his victims under the guise of taking their photographs. Once alone, he would charm them, taking pictures before assaulting and strangling them. His victims often suffered before death, as Alcala derived satisfaction from their fear and pain. He would strangle his victims until they lost consciousness, revive them, and repeat the process, savoring his control over them. Authorities believe Alcala committed at least 8 murders, although the true number is likely much higher. The following are some of the known cases that mark his trail of terror. Cornelia Crilly, a 23-year-old Transworld Airlines TWA flight attendant who was found strangled with bite marks on her body in her apartment in 1971 in New York City. Ellen Jane Hover, the daughter of a famous Hollywood nightclub owner. She disappeared in 1977. Her body was later found in a wooded area outside New York City. Jill Barcombe, a teenager who had recently moved to California, found beaten and strangled in Los Angeles in 1977. Georgia Wixted, a 27-year-old nurse, found in Malibu in 1977, killed in a similar fashion with brutal physical trauma. Charlotte Lamb, found in an apartment laundry room in El Segundo, California, in 1978. Her body was positioned in a haunting, posed manner. Jill Parenteau, discovered in her apartment in Burbank, California, in 1979. Robin Samsoe, a 12-year-old girl from Huntington Beach, California, abducted in 1979 while on her way to ballet class. Her remains were found in a mountainous area after a prolonged search. Alcala was arrested shortly after Samsoe's murder, with police discovering a storage locker in Seattle containing hundreds of photographs of women, young girls, and boys, many of whom remain unidentified to this day. Alongside these photos were pieces of jewelry, some of which belonged to his victims. It was this grim evidence that solidified his connection to numerous unsolved cases. Despite overwhelming evidence, Alcala's legal journey was far from straightforward. He was tried, convicted, and sentenced to death twice for Samsoe's murder, only to have both convictions overturned due to procedural errors. It wasn't until 2010, after a grueling third trial, that Alcala was finally sentenced to death for the murders of Robin Samsoe, Jill Barkham, Georgia Wixted, Charlotte Lamb, and Jill Parenteau. During his final trial, Alcala chose to represent himself, showcasing his chilling lack of remorse. He cross-examined witnesses, including his own surviving victims, and even played a bizarre piece of music to the court as part of his defense. His courtroom antics highlighted his narcissism and complete disregard for the pain he had caused. In 2013, authorities used DNA evidence to link him to the murders of Cornelia Crilly and Ellen Jane Hover, adding 2 more convictions to his record. Rodney Alcala's story is both terrifying and tragic. He left a trail of broken families, grieving loved ones, and unanswered questions. Even after his conviction, investigators suspect he may be responsible for dozens of other murders across the United States. Many of the women in the photos found in his storage locker have never been identified, leaving open the horrifying possibility that there are many more victims who were never reported or whose cases were never solved. The case of Rodney Alcala has haunted those who followed it, not just for the brutality of his actions, but for the chilling way he blended in with society. His charm, intelligence, and ability to evade capture for so long serve as a grim reminder that monsters can hide in plain sight. To this day, Alcala remains on death row in California, his crimes and their lasting impact casting a long shadow over the families and friends of his victims.